Well, Derbyites, it is Tony season, and we are getting ready for the big ceremony in June. But before that, we have to get to the nominations. I'm Sam Eckmann, and I'm here with David Buchanan, discussing everything that we think is going to happen in this Tony season, which is pretty wide open, especially on this musical side. We've had sort of races in the past, where there's a band's visit or a Hamilton that comes in and dominates everything, and I don't feel like it's that kind of year. It's a little bit more open, and it's a little bit more of a race this year, which is exciting. What do you have out front for Best Musical, David?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's 2 or 3 shows this year that could actually win at this point in the race. I have Hadestown in first place right now. I think based on word of mouth from its off-Broadway runs and now previews, it's looking really strong. But we haven't seen the Broadway mounting of Tootsie yet. I think that could be really strong too and has a chance to win. And then, I mean, my other slots, I have the Prom in third place right now, which is kind of an industry favorite and trying to build momentum as we get into the season. And I think the fourth slot is kind of open. So maybe we could talk about what you've got in your fourth slot and what you have to win.
Well, I think I have the same first 3 in the lineup as you. I just think Hadestown seems so original to me.
Yeah.
It's an original score. It's a unique concept, using the Greek myth plus like a rock folk opera sound. And it has a cast that a lot of people love. And Rachel Chavkin is coming back to direct it. She was the director for Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet. So I have that winning as well. But I definitely think Tootsie could be a big crowd pleaser. Mr. Yazbek is back again from the band's visit with his score. And I have the Prom in there too, which I really hope it, sticks to, it gets a lot of nominations and can build some sales because it has a ton of heart and is a really charming show.
Yeah.
That fourth slot's kind of open, I think. Those are the 3 that I would expect to be locks. I have Be More Chill again because it's an original piece. There's a lot of jukebox musicals, which they haven't put in the top categories much recently when they're given the option not to. So, I mean, I know Ain't Too Proud is kind of the reteaming of the Jersey Boys team from Des McAnuff and Sergio Trujillo, but it's certainly going to be slick and entertaining. I think it could be overtaken by something more original.
Yeah, I have Ain't Too Proud right now, and I think it is between that one and Be More Chill for the fourth slot at the moment. I think you have a really good point about originality. I'm just kind of basing the decision right now on which of the 2 seem to have better reviews and would appeal more to the 80 some odd people that vote for the Tony nominations. I don't know if Be More Chill is really hitting that demo. Does it matter? Maybe not, but at the moment I have Ain't Too Proud, which is kind of, I think, the safer of the 2. But like you said, jukebox musicals don't always do well in the top category, so I could easily see it not being Ain't Too Proud or the Cher show that's kind of in right on the kind of periphery of the conversation. So one of those 2 or 3.
And I will give a special shout out to Head Over Heels, which I think was really unfairly trashed by critics who don't know how to have fun.
Yeah.
Because like if we must have jukebox musicals and producers of Broadway are telling us that we must, I think it's cool that they told their own story with it. It wasn't just a retelling of the band coming together. They did their own thing, told a 16th century prose poem, and so that was one of the musicals I wish had lasted longer, but alas. So in terms of, speaking of jukebox versus original, in best score, are you going for those 3 plus Be More Chill then?
Best score, I am going with those 3. I'm totally in the prediction center right now. If anybody was to look, I'm totally going out on a limb, and I actually have Philip Glass in the fourth slot, just because it's early in the race and we can kind of have fun. We have some time. I think it has an outside chance, just because of how prominent it is in the production, and the way Rudin is really marketing. Like when Philip Glass had his Kennedy Center honors, right after his section of the show, he had an ad that Philip Glass is on Broadway with King Lear. But that's a total, like, I'm really having fun with that slot. I think Be More Chill could easily take that one. Do you have Be More Chill in that fourth slot there?
I do. I mean, there are we had last time, so Angels in America competed for score. There have been other plays that certainly compete for score, and there's actually more plays that do have original music in them, like Danny Elfman is doing some music for Gary. We just don't know yet. A lot of them aren't open, so we don't know if it is going to be enough to have them qualify it. But if, if it does qualify, we'll add them to the prediction center. But Philip Glass certainly has a lot of like cultural cachet. I just wonder. I don't know. I think if they have the option, even if Be More Chill really does skew more towards the teenage audience, it's not the Tony voters demographic really. I think they'll want to honor Joe Iconis, and they'll want to support the industry's own artists. So that's what I have going in there.
That's a fair point. And I think the person behind the score is really important. One real note I'll make on King Lear, and the rationale I'm using to justify having it there right now, is that unlike other plays that have had music, including Evo's The Crucible, which Philip Glass did a few years ago, there's a quartet of string performers on stage for most of King Lear. So the orchestra is on stage. You see them accompanying the show throughout the entire show. So I think maybe that could sway some favor in its direction. But again, that's a crapshoot prediction.
That's a good point. And I have for book, I'm going with the old, even though it's closed, I'm actually going with, for my fourth slot, assuming that the three locks for Best Musical, Tootsie, Hadestown, and The Prom are also going to show up in the other categories. I have those for Best Book, and then I'm just going for head over heels for that fourth slot.
Okay.
I think it's a book that's entirely in prose. I know the original writer kind of left the project, but it was super creative. I think that in that way it stands out more than the other competition. I do think Pretty Woman might have a shot in there because it gives them a chance to honor Gary Marshall, because he's credited with the book as well. But what do you have for that category?
I have Ain't Too Proud right now, in part because I have it in my fourth slot for Best Musical, but also because I believe the book was done by Dominique Morisseau. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and she's just really a very well-regarded and esteemed playwright. And the fact that I think this is her first representation on Broadway, if it does get into that fourth slot in Best Musical, they might want to give it this nomination and also honor a really strong and playwright in the industry. She has a lot of support, I think, and hasn't had a foray onto Broadway yet. So they could reward her in that way.
Yeah. Well, why don't we move over to the acting categories? That's what everyone really wants here.
I suppose.
So speaking of Ain't Too Proud, do you think that Derek Baskin is going to show up in lead actor?
I don't think I have him in right now. Actually, maybe I do. Let me pull up my predictions. I don't have him in right now. I have Santino in first place right now. I think at this point, without having seen all the performances, he's kind of far and away out front. But I'm also kind of not sure how to populate a lot of these acting categories. I'm having a hard time on the musical side anyway, really populating with 5 contenders at this point in the race. Who do you have in your 5 slots?
I don't have that one up here, but I think Santino Fontana seems like the obvious winner. Just based, I think Tootsie is going to be a very big deal when it finally debuts. He has a transformational role. It's one that already, has Oscar clout to it. So he seems like the far and away leader of the pack. But I think Damon Dono is really charming in Oklahoma, which is it's a production that the industry just seems to love. I saw it at St. Anne's, and he's fantastic. It's a much different than anyone else has played these roles. All the roles are just pop much more than they have in past productions. And I don't know, everything. I have Derek Baskin getting in, but everything is kind of up in the air. I think Brooks Ashmanskas from The Prom is hysterical and could definitely secure a slot. And I've seen him in a lot of things. This is one of his best roles, and it's just kind of cementing him as one of the great Broadway musical comedians.
Yeah, I have him in as well. I have Will Chase. I have Damon. And then my 5th slot, I have Reeve Carney for Hadestown. I think if that really takes off in nominations, and if we both think, do you have it as winning Best Musical right now?
I do right now, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think if it's going to win Best Musical and have a lot of support across the board, I think it could probably get Reeve into Best Actor, but I don't think he's in our combined odds. I don't think he's in the top 5, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, we should be wary of that because last year we saw if it turns into a thing where they do like Bands Visit, they just checked those boxes down the line.
Exactly.
And no one, not no one, but many people didn't think Tony Shalhoub would win because he was up against Ethan Slater, who was giving this super athletic performance, and Joshua Henry in Carousel, and Harry Head and Patton. And there were such huge roles where Tony Shalhoub didn't even sing, but they just went down the line for Band's Visit. And if Hadestown becomes like that this year, then they could certainly go for that with Reeve Carney.
Yeah, exactly.
And over in Best Lead Actress, well, we know I'm a total blockhead. Is this Stephanie J. Block's year finally to get a Tony?
I think so. I have her in first. And that's in part because I don't know who else can really take it from her at this moment. We haven't, I mean, we'll see what the reviews are like for Hadestown in Oklahoma. I have Beth Level from The Prom, Kelly O'Hara for Kiss Me Kate, Eva Noblezada for Hadestown, and Rebecca Naomi Jones. Those are my 5. And we'll see if the reviews kind of help one of those in the shows that are in previews right now kind of catapult into first place. But I don't think Kelly or Beth are going to win necessarily. So yeah, I think at this moment, by default, I have Stephanie J. Block, just because, I mean, the performance itself, but also the fact that she doesn't have a Tony yet, and she has a lot of support in the industry, and probably came very close to winning for Falsettos a few years ago. Yeah, what are your, I mean, you're biased, but what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I can be impartial. No, I think the one thing that might hold her back is that I don't know if Cher Show is going to get a Best Musical nomination.
Yeah.
And it's often tied to, this winner is often tied to a Best Musical nominee. I think was Jessie Mueller the last one for
I think Beautiful got in. I think I saw somewhere that it's been since Heather Headley won for Aida, and Aida was not nominated.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the winner for Best Musical.
Yeah. Yeah, so which is a long time ago.
That is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so that's a pretty big precedent to set, but she has the narrative to win. It's just a matter of, are they going to want to reward the show if they're not going to put it in Best Musical?
Yeah.
I think I have the same 5 as you. I'm worried. I would be worried about Eva Noblezada again if Hadestown becomes this huge deal. She's an amazing performer. They could check her off there. And Rebecca Naomi Jones does a great job in Oklahoma, and that is going to be a big deal with industry voters. And I haven't seen these yet, so I'm not, or I've seen Pretty Woman, and Samantha Barks does a great job in that role. And she's been, getting a lot of great notices for that. She's on stage basically the whole show. And I haven't seen this one yet, but Sophia Ann Caruso is an incredible, she has the most killer voice in the world. And I think she's like 17 or she's super young. And she could be a surprise person that comes in at the end for Beetlejuice.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Beetlejuice for Best Musical. Does that have an outside chance of taking that 4th slot, do you think?
I think so. It's kind of an unknown right now. I know they've done a lot of work between their tryout and now revamping a lot of things. I actually have Alex Timbers getting into Best Director, even though I'm not predicting it for Best Musical right now, which maybe that means I should predict it. But I haven't seen this yet because it hasn't premiered, but everyone I know who saw the Out of Town tryout really said it's like a visual feast, and Best Director often it's like the one with the most moving parts and the one that has the the most obvious concept behind it often gets in. So I do have Alex Timbers getting in for Director. We'll have to see.
I think you've just swayed me, because I did not know who to put in that 5th slot for Best Director. And I have Kiss Me Kate by default, even though that really doesn't feel right at all. So I think I'm going to change my predictions as soon as we're done talking, because I think if nothing else, Beetlejuice would do really well in the design categories.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense that it could get into Best Director too.
Well, since you brought up Kiss Me Kate, we kind of skipped over the revivals because there's only 2 of them.
Yeah.
For sure. But our only 2 revivals are Kiss Me Kate and Oklahoma. And do you have a preference on one of those? Which one you think is going to win?
I think Oklahoma is far out front, although some reaction to early previews is quite divided. I mean, you saw the production when it was at St. Anne's.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any incarnation of this particular production yet. I could kind of see an outside argument for Kiss Me Kate maybe having a chance if people are so, if the production is so divisive. But I really I don't, Kiss Me Kate it's a good production. I saw it, but it doesn't rise to the level of winning Best Revival, even in a field of 2.
Well, I think it's a pretty close race because I know a lot of people are just saying Oklahoma will take it, but the production is divisive. It is not your grandma's Oklahoma. It is,
exactly,
very minimalist. The score is done in kind of a bluegrass way where there's a band on stage, so they've reorchestrated that, and it's just a lot darker, which I think some people will like. If you really enjoy when they pull apart those classics and re-envision them in a new way. But for people who are just like, oh, I want like the big sweeping score and everything, it's not going to give you that. It's a much more intimate, darker look at it. And in that case, Kiss Me Kate does have an advantage. I think Kiss Me Kate's big advantage is that many people remember, still fresh in their minds, the revival with Maren Maisie and Brian Stokes Mitchell. So I think that could cloud people in a way. It's sort of like when they did A Delicate Balance, when Glenn Close and John Bosco did that, and people were like, oh, but I still remember like Rosemary Harris and Elaine Stritch did the perfect A Delicate Balance. So like, I don't want to consider any other version of it. And so I'm worried that Kiss Me Kate could have a similar thing working against it.
Yeah, it's also just not, I mean, it's a classic show. It's done by Roundabout, but it's not in the kind of vein of the Bart Scher revivals at Lincoln Center that usually dominate in the category. My Fair Lady didn't win last year, and it lost to a revival that was kind of not necessarily a reinvention, but a kind of unique take on a show. And I feel like there are some dynamics in play in this race as well. Although, as you said, Oklahoma is a far different interpretation of previous productions. So, yeah, I guess I take your point that it could be a lot closer than I'm kind of chalking it up to be. I just don't know if there's going to be a lot of passion behind Kiss Me Kate in the way that people that like this reinterpretation of Oklahoma will really like it.
Well, where Oklahoma is probably going to do very well is acting nominations. I know you, if you haven't seen it yet, Ali Stroker as Annie. Oh God, Ado Annie. It's been a long day, y'all. Ado Annie. She just gives a killer performance, and she made history because she's when she did Deaf West Spring Awakening, she was the first performer using a wheelchair to ever be on Broadway. And I'm pretty sure she's going to be the first one to get a Tony nomination. She just steals, every time she opens her mouth, she steals the scene every time she gets on stage. So I think she's going to be hotly competitive. I also see Mary Testa could get in as well, because she doesn't have a Tony Award and she's had a huge career in this industry. But I think Ellie Stroker just gives such a phenomenal performance and steals the scenes. I think it might come down featured actors between Allie and Amber Gray of Hadestown.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I have Amber Gray in first place right now, just because I do think both of the Oklahoma contenders are going to get in. I have Allie in second and Mary in third. And I'm not quite sure which of the two I would necessarily privilege, especially since I haven't seen it yet. So I have Amber Gray out front in kind of a Hadestown sweep of the featured categories, which we can get to in a second. I also have Stephanie Styles for Kiss Me Kate. She got a lot of great notices when the show opened, and does have a few really standout songs in the show that she just really does a great job with. And I have Lily Cooper in for Tootsie, although that's kind of at the moment an unknown entity for me. So those are my five.
Yeah, I'm not really sure to like what to do with the rest of that category. I think it's pretty
Yeah.
open. I'm not necessarily predicting them all, but like Angie Schworer has a super funny song in the prom, and if that's a Best Musical nominee,
Yeah.
she could get in as well. If the Cher show performs like Summer did last time with the three Donna Summers, three Chers, then Michaela Diamond and Teal Wicks would be pretty big threats. And there's a lot. Stephanie Sue from Be More Chill as well, I think.
Yeah.
Again, I don't really know what to do with those slots.
I think this is, I mean, yeah, I read off my 5 pretty confidently, but this is, I think, the hardest category to kind of pick or narrow down to 5 contenders. I really was not quite sure what to do. So I think a lot of those, I think maybe the first 3, Gray, Stoker, and Testa are probably safe, but I don't know about the last 2 slots.
Well, I actually think featured actor is a little bit more difficult. I don't think there's, I don't know. Do you think there's, I think Patrick Page is way down in our odds for, well, not way down, but he's certainly out of the top 5, I think, right now. And that seems just wrong to me.
Yeah, it's shocking.
I'd have him winning.
I do too.
It's weird to me that he doesn't already have a Tony nomination. I really can't speak tonight, sorry. But he's like done everything in the city. He's worked with everyone. He has such stage presence every role he does, and I think this is finally it.
Agreed. I have him in first, and I'm really surprised that, like you said, he's like outside of the top 5 in our odds, I think. I'm not quite sure. I mean, there are people that I think could definitely get in, but again, the 2 featured categories I think are the hardest of the 2. I do have Chris Sieber for The Prom. I have Michael McGrath for Tootsie. I have Corbin Bleu for Kiss Me Kate, although I'm not sure if Kiss Me Kate is going to do as well as I kind of have represented in my predictions. And I have George Salazar for Be More Chill as kind of the standout performer with the standout number in that musical, although I'm not quite sure if that's enough, because I've left off like some of the Oklahoma supporting featured actors in my list. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to do.
Yeah, I have George Salazar as well, because he has the big rousing number from that show, which I think will be enough to push him over the edge. I do have Patrick Vale from Oklahoma, but there's a lot of guys vying for that. He plays Judd, and because this is a much darker take, Judd almost gets kind of a sympathetic angle towards the end, so he could get it. But there's also like 3 viable men for that show, so I don't know if they'll cancel each other out.
Right.
But I have Jeremy Pope getting in for Ain't Too Proud. Again, he has competition within his own show. Ephraim Sykes has also gotten amazing reviews from that, but Jeremy Pope also did Choir Boy this year. And that category, you all can watch our talk about the plays as well, but the lead actor in a play is just an absolute bloodbath. So I think it might be safer to reward him over here. And I do think, I don't have him predicted right now, but I think Eric Anderson in Pretty Woman is like a surprise scene stealer. He came out with, his big break really was Soul Doctor, which didn't really catch on, but he got a lot of great notices for it, and he's worked steadily since then. And he plays, the hotel manager and this homeless guy. He's kind of like a Greek chorus narrator role, and has like all the funniest lines. He and Orfeh are both great in their featured roles in it, so he could be a surprise one of the few nominations Pretty Woman gets, I think.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned Jeremy Pope, because there was something, I think 2 or 3 seasons ago, where Mary Beth Peil got a surprise nomination in the featured actress category. And we had said that, she was in 2 shows that season. Anastasia opened in the spring. She got in for Anastasia. I don't think I have Jeremy Pope in my 5 for actor in a play, but I think based on the 2 shows, they will want to give him, and he was brilliant in Choir Boy. So I think that's definitely likely to happen. That's a really smart prediction.
Well, we'll see how smart it is when nominations come out, but we're gonna move on here and keep it tuned into Gold Derby. Make your predictions. The odds will go up and down based on your predictions, so make them now. and follow along. And David and I will try to get this right as the season goes on.